Being featured by an app store is perhaps one of the most powerful ways to increase discovery for your game. But before we talk about how to improve your chances of getting an app store feature, I'd like you to remember 3 things. First thing, don't rely on getting an app store feature as a key part of your marketing plan. You should always strive to get featured by an app store and do all of the things that will increase your chances of getting featured, but relying on an app store feature is a recipe for marketing failure. Second, there are no guarantees that you're going to get an app store feature. Even if you do everything perfectly and everything right, sometimes you just won't get featured. Third, the way that app stores decide what types of games to look for and what types of games to feature will change over time as their own brand strategy and content curation strategy changes. Just because you got featured last time, that doesn't mean that doing the same thing over and over again will guarantee a feature next time. There are dozens of articles and dozens of ways that you can improve your chances of getting featured by an app store. We've had a very solid track record of getting our games featured by the major app stores. And in the past 5 years, almost every single game that we've published has at some point in time been featured by Apple, Google Play, or some of the other app stores that we distribute on. In this masterclass, I'm going to focus on 3 of the big things that we always focus on when trying to optimize and maximize our chances of getting our game featured. Firstly, great looking visuals are one of the most important aspects of increasing your chances of getting an app store feature. Over the years, I've studied hundreds and maybe even thousands of games that have been featured by both Apple and Google Play, and very rarely do I recall ever seeing a game that didn't look visually great being featured by these app stores. Great visuals doesn't necessarily equate to expensive visuals. You don't necessarily need cinematic quality 3D graphics in order to get featured, but a clean design and visuals that are in line with App Store guidelines will always help your game to get featured. Secondly, pay attention to what the major app stores themselves are promoting in the next release of their operating system or the next release and version of their products. Both Apple and Google will often preview new features that are upcoming in the next versions of their operating system or future devices that they're bringing to the market. One of the key things that they'll look for when selecting games or apps for featuring is how well these games take advantage of or showcase some of these new features or design concepts that they're trying to promote in their upcoming versions of new operating systems. Try to find ways to adopt and apply some of these new tools or technologies or themes into your game that naturally enhance the experience of your game using these new technologies. To give you an example, when the Apple AR Kit was released for preview on the iOS 11 beta back in 2017, the first thing that our team working on Transformers Earth Wars did was look at how to apply the AR Kit technology in a fun and engaging way inside of the game. The design we came up with was to allow players inside of the game to actually take videos or a picture of themselves interacting with their favorite characters in Transformers universe. You now not only had the chance to play with your favorite Transformers characters inside of the game, you could actually interact with them inside your living room or interact with them with your kid using the AR Kit from Apple. Designing the right user scenarios into your game that leverages the latest technologies or the latest themes that the app stores are trying to push will help you improve the chances of getting featured. Rule number 3, do one thing really, really well. As an indie developer, your resources are likely going to be limited. So don't compete with the AAA studios on doing everything very well. Focus on the one thing that you want to showcase to the app stores and do that really, really well. Maybe it's visuals, maybe it's design, maybe it's gameplay. Triple down and do that one thing really well and then highlight it and showcase it to the app stores when you submit your game for feature review. A great example of this is how we focus on the innovative gameplay of Rodeo Stampede when it was launched in mid-2016. Rodeo Stampede launched at a time where competition was rife on the app stores. In fact, the game was launched 2 weeks before Pokemon Go was launched on a global basis. Instead of competing on many different areas, what we did was focus on gameplay innovation, combining an endless runner genre with a zoom management or simulation genre and making sure that aspect of the gameplay felt as natural and as good as possible. As a result, Rodeo Stampede, in the face of intense competition, was actually awarded one of the top 5 most innovative game awards by Google Play for 2016. Sometimes, improving your chances of getting featured by an app store is just as much about what not to do as it is about what you should do. And there are 3 things that will harm your chances of getting featured by an app store. Number 1, app stores are very family-friendly places. Both Apple and Google recognize that they have a very broad demographic in terms of their audience. There could be kids, there could be adults, there could be men, there could be women. So when they're trying to look for games and apps to feature, they're going to be looking for family-friendly games that appeal to as broad an audience as possible. So certain games and certain types of content which are not friendly to a broad audience will hurt your chances of getting featured. For example, excessive violence in your games may harm your chances of getting featured. Games that have gambling aspects may harm your chances of getting featured. Games that include gameplay or content that involves guns or drugs would definitely harm your chances of getting featured by the app stores. The second major thing that's going to hurt your chances of getting featured by an app store is cloning or copycatting other people's games. With over 2 million apps inside of each app store, what they're looking for is best-in-class games and best-in-class apps that they can feature and promote to their user bases. So if your game is a clone of a popular game in the same genre, the chances of you getting featured are going to be very low. The third thing that is going to hurt your game's chances of being featured by an app store is bad player reviews for featuring. In fact, there are now unspoken rules from some of the major app stores that require games to have a certain player review rating before they will be considered for editorial and feature review. The good news is, once your game has been featured by Apple or Google Play, getting a subsequent feature typically becomes easier. Maybe your game has been very well localized into certain languages, but not in others. So maybe this time, you may have been featured in the US and other English-speaking countries, but not in some of the Asian language countries like Japan or China. So a great strategy in terms of getting additional features is to look at which countries you got featured this time and which ones you didn't, and focus on truly localizing and culturalizing your game's content for those countries and regions that didn't give you a feature last time. Also, app stores like to feature big updates. So even though you might be updating your game and adding new content on a bi-weekly basis or a monthly basis, don't go back to the app stores every single update asking for a feature review. Instead, wait for a really, really big update with substantial new content or substantial new gameplay, and then ask for a feature review from your favorite App Store teams. In summary, App Store features can give a powerful boost to your game's discovery. Though you shouldn't rely on getting featured as part of your marketing plan, you should always practice the things that will improve your chances of getting a feature, and be aware of the things that are going to harm your chances of getting featured. By practicing these things and making them a habit in both your game's marketing plan and content development plan, you may be pleasantly surprised by how often you'll get featured by the major app stores.